Hi everyone. Before we kick off today's episode, we just want to take a moment to remind you that this week, starting April 21st, is National Infertility Awareness Week. So, to everyone who's participating in events and media this week, we want to say thank you. And for all of those who count themselves among the 1 in 6 who experience infertility, we just want to take this moment to acknowledge you and let you know that you're not alone. The more we all speak about infertility, the more we can support each other. Okay, today's episode is hosted by my friend and colleague Emma Gallagher, and it's featuring our guest Danielle Faith. Today, Danielle and her husband, Marty, actually have the Progyny benefit from Marty's employer, Worldwide Technology, and they're extremely grateful to have that coverage now because, as you'll hear, they know what it's like to go through treatment without the Progyny benefit. Enjoy.
I struggled with pain with my periods since I could remember. It was debilitating, cramps, nausea, heavy bleeding, lightheadedness. I missed volleyball games, events in high school, and it was always just explained by the doctors that I was just having a period, and that's what periods were like.
Yeah, that's what periods are like when you have endometriosis. Mild discomfort with periods may be normal, but pain that stops a woman from working or going to school or playing volleyball or other daily activities is not normal, and these are symptoms that should be taken seriously by medical providers. Today, we're going to hear from Danielle, who is going to share her experiences with endometriosis and her journey to parenthood. I'm Emma Gallagher with Progyny, and this is Infertility. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to National Infertility Awareness Week. Each year, the infertility community, led by Resolve, the National Infertility Association, take this week to reduce stigma and educate the public about reproductive health and issues that make building a family so difficult for many. And so we're happy to help Danielle share her story with you all today. Not only is Danielle's story relatable and important to hear, but Danielle has also dedicated herself to advocacy and awareness through her organization, Making a Miracle. But before we dive into Danielle's story, I just want to take a second to remind you that we have some resources available for anyone who might want to bring fertility and family building benefits to their employer at progyny.com/talk-to-HR. National Infertility Awareness Week is a really great time for anyone thinking of speaking to their employer about Progyny, so you really should go check out the resources at progyny.com/talk-to-HR today if you have a moment. Okay, let's get to know Danielle.
My name's Danielle Faith. I was born and raised in Champaign, Illinois, but I am currently in the St. Louis area.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Danielle had been experiencing severe pain around her menstrual cycle for years, and every doctor that she spoke to about her symptoms told her that this was normal. Unfortunately, Danielle's experience is not uncommon, as it can take up to 10 years on average for endometriosis to be diagnosed. So for years, Danielle just lived with the pain, being told it was normal, but wondering if that could be true. Until she moved from Illinois to St. Louis, and she found an opportunity to get a better answer.
There was a specialist that, was just endometriosis. That was like a huge thing to me because I had already been doing my research on what this could possibly be, even though the doctors weren't really listening to me. That was one of the things that, was highlighted was endo. So when I moved out here and they told me that I could actually see somebody for that, that was a huge step in my journey.
The laparoscopy confirmed that endometriosis and some tissue was removed, which would hopefully help ease a lot of the pain that Danielle had experienced. And as part of the evaluation, the doctor mentioned that if Danielle and her husband wanted to try to get pregnant, it would be a good idea to start trying sooner rather than later, as after 6 months or so, it's possible that more endometriosis could spread and potentially disrupt a pregnancy.
After my endo diagnosis, I already had this feeling, this intuition that I was going to have problems getting pregnant. I knew this. I don't know what it was inside of me that was just you're going to have to go through real treatment in order to get pregnant. And, me and my husband had been together for 10 plus years at this point. And it was like, I haven't gotten pregnant yet. We haven't even had a pregnancy scare. So there's something not right. And so I went back to my OB and I was like, they diagnosed me, I have endo. What can you do for me? And her response is that I have to prove that I was trying for over a year before she would give me any type of medication, help me do any testing. And I didn't want to take that for an answer. It was like I was back in the zone of nobody listening to me again.
There's a rule of thumb for those trying to conceive that states those under 35 years old should try for a year before seeking help, and those over 35 should seek help after trying for 6 months. This rule of thumb, like many rules of thumb, isn't perfect. People should seek help when they need it, especially if they're coming in with a diagnosis that is known to cause difficulty with conception, like endometriosis. So Danielle kept pushing for support.
When I reached out to one of the local clinics, a doctor got back to me and she was like, well, in order for you to see us, I need a referral from an OB. But my OB at the time was like, I'm not giving you anything until a year. So she went ahead and referred me to a different OB who then did all of the tests on me, ran my AMH, even did a semen analysis on my husband. And that's when we found out, like, you are going to have to get treatment. And that kind of fast-tracked that a little bit, although I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, because then you have to, factor in finances and insurance and all of that. So that's kind of where it started.
These tests with her new OB showed some male factor and some ovulatory issues that could be contributing to infertility on top of the endometriosis. So she finally got her referral to a fertility clinic.
We did not have infertility insurance at the time. So this was not something that we were aware of, and we couldn't afford really anything. So we started with timed intercourse, and we could afford the little $300 trigger shot. It was a step, but I still knew in my head, like, this was not going to work. We did 3 rounds of timed intercourse. And then after that, we decided to jump into IUI, insemination, because nothing was working, and it was getting tiresome. And it was like spending $300 every month, like, can we up it a little bit? And so that's when we decided to do the insemination. And even that was not working. I have hope, but I don't feel it. I don't feel like, there's moments where you're like, oh, I have so much, I feel like I can get pregnant. I don't know, that's so weird to say, but in these moments, it was just kind of like, let's just go through the process,
With a diagnosis like Danielle's, male factor, endometriosis, and even some signs of PCOS, a treatment like timed intercourse and intrauterine insemination is going to come with some seriously low chances of success. But unfortunately, without coverage for fertility treatment, Danielle, her husband, and even her doctor didn't feel like moving to IVF was really viable at that point.
Yeah, so she was and still is the most supportive person that I could have had in my journey. And she knew our financial situation. So she never really pushed. I think that she wanted to give us that, like, autonomy and, like, going through the treatment with how we felt like we could handle it. And I remember we got insurance. We ended up getting insurance through my husband's job. He had gotten a new job, and it felt really awesome to have something, right? And I remember going after the last failed insemination, and I sat in there with her and I said, look, this isn't working. I want to do IVF right now. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that. I'm so glad you said that. I've been wanting to say it, but I knew that you couldn't afford it. So, like, I'm so glad that you said that, because I think this is it. And it was amazing that she didn't want to push us because she knew we couldn't at the time, but she knew what we needed to do, for sure.
Okay, so they had some coverage to work with now, and the plan was to move forward with IVF. The coverage they had through Danielle's husband's employer wasn't Progyny coverage. We'll get to that. And it had some limitations.
We received 3 cycles of IVF through that insurance. They did not cover PGT testing, though. So that was another thing that, maybe my journey would have been a little bit shorter if they did, because we were, doing things that we may not have had to do,
PGT is pre-implantation genetic testing, which is an incredible tool that doctors use to select a healthy embryo for transfer. It has really been a game changer as it can help reduce chances of pregnancy loss and has allowed for really excellent success rates when transferring an embryo. So that not being included in the coverage was a shame. But that being said, it did put IVF on the table.
We went through all the shots. We did the retrieval. We ended up with 4 embryos. And our first transfer, I got a call right before the transfer. It said, one of your embryos didn't make it when we thought it. And I was a little anxious, oh man, now this is, it's not going to work. We can't do this anymore. And then we're going to have to wait a whole other month. But they were like, we have time to dethaw another one. So, you have the choice whether you can insert both or whatever, but we know that one is not going to be viable. To me, it just felt more natural to go ahead and transfer that one with the other one. So we went ahead and we went through with the transfer and got through the dreaded 2-week wait. And we decided that since IVF is just so different than just finding out you're pregnant, that we wanted to have that moment together. So we had them go through and put our information in a portal rather than call us. And when my husband got home from work, we took a test together and it was positive. I was pregnant. It was a dream come true. Our first round of IVF. We're pregnant, we don't have to spend any more money. This is just awesome. And I immediately called my mom, Mom, we're pregnant. Everyone had been waiting for this. All my siblings already have kids, and everyone's waiting for us. Christmas was the week after. So we decided to surprise my grandma and his mother with this pregnancy announcement, as a present. And I will never forget their faces. And we have videos and everything. And it was so exciting. But it was the day after we got home from the holidays that I felt weird. I felt different. And going through infertility, you test a lot. And so I had already ran out of tests. And I'm like, can you go to the store and just maybe get some more? Because I feel really different. And he did, and what do you know? Those lines started fading. And it was devastating. There was nothing I could do about it. And it was the holiday. I couldn't really contact my clinic. And it was just kind of we're losing this baby. And that was hard. One of the hardest things was just telling people that we weren't pregnant anymore. All of that excitement that everyone had of, oh my gosh, we're going to have a baby. We got to start buying things. It all happened so fast. But then I ended up calling people and are like, yeah, we ended up losing it. Maybe next time. All of those calls stopped. It definitely felt really lonely.
This loss was a very tough one for the couple, but they decided with their doctor that the best next step was to move forward with another embryo transfer.
Yeah, so I had 2 other embryos, which each resulted in failed transfers. Now, because we didn't do the PGD testing, we don't know, it could have been a mutation, could have been anything. But once we got through those, we decided to go ahead and do another round of IVF. Did end up getting 3 embryos out of that round. I developed OHSS, which is the ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, which we were going to do a fresh transfer, but because I had developed the OHSS, we had to cancel it. I ended up with a hospital stay. It was really hard, and I think it was hard physically, but I think for me it was harder emotionally because it started to make me feel like my body wasn't made for this. Like, clearly something's not right, and maybe this is its way of telling me, like, stop. You're not meant to be pregnant. And as a woman that wants a baby really bad, that hurts because your body is made to do this. And when your body isn't doing what you think it's supposed to be doing, it definitely is like a hit,
OHSS is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, and a case like Danielle experienced, where she needed a hospital stay, is actually quite rare. OHSS causes the ovaries to swell and become painful, and can be life-threatening if not treated. As I said, severe cases of OHSS are extremely rare these days, but it's important to understand the symptoms. So if you have a moment, head over to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Progyny and search for OHSS to watch some videos about what to look for. Danielle recovered, and her doctor cleared her for an embryo transfer in November of 2020.
We ended up getting pregnant again with our first transfer November of 2020, and lost it, a chemical pregnancy, pretty much like the same thing happened, but this time, of course, we didn't tell anybody. And I remember the call afterwards, my doctor, who, like I said, is, he was like, I would get so upset with like things failing, but as soon as she called me, it was like this relief. And she just had this way of doing that, which is incredible out of a doctor. But she's talking about all these tests that we could do. Okay, we need to do this time. We need to do karyotype testing. We need to do, testing on both of you. Let's think of this protocol. And this was, my last chance this year before my deductible started over. So, in my head, I'm like, one, I just had this OHSS. I'm honestly over it. Like, I don't even know if I can continue this again. I don't even know if I can if these fail, I don't know if I even have it in me to do another round of IVF. And my deductible is going to start over. So like, this has to happen now. This has to happen. So she agreed with it. And we went through with that transfer December 19th of 2020. And that transfer resulted in my now 2-year-old daughter. So it was a very, very hard pregnancy after loss. But it's kind of amazing that when I felt like giving up, it just happened, and I had that extra push for it to happen.
It wasn't easy by any stretch, but Danielle and her husband, with the help of a really wonderful fertility doctor, reached their goal.
So the fertility benefits that we had was definitely better than nothing. A lot of people in the state of Missouri don't have fertility benefits because it's not mandated here. But luckily, my husband's job was very, they wanted people to build families, right? And this fertility benefit that we had, it offered the 3 rounds of IVF. Mm-hmm. But when you experience reoccurring loss, a lot of benefits offer the PGT testing because of that reoccurrent loss. They don't want to have to continue to pay for something that, is just going to fail. Right. So that's one of the downfalls to that benefit that we had. The other one, which I'm actually, very blessed with Progyny, is that I've never heard of a benefit to surrogacy. And that's not something that I ever had to think about in my journey until now. And with one embryo left, frozen, and the complications that I had in pregnancy, which I had an extremely complicated pregnancy. I had a blood clot. I had hyperemesis gravidarum. I had HELP syndrome, which is the extreme to preeclampsia. And in the end, my OB was like, please don't ever get pregnant again. Because it could have resulted in a totally different way for me and my daughter. And so the only option that we really have to look at, aside from, adoption or, fostering, is surrogacy if we decide to continue and move forward. Now, right now, I don't know where we are in our journey. It's complicated, but Progyny offers that. And that's huge, and I'm guessing that it's also like, Progyny has been so helpful with everything since I've had them, meaning even the events that I have with my nonprofit, like Progyny is just there, that I feel like that they would be such a big support, even aside from just the benefit financially, so.
Yes, Progyny is a support for those who need it and have access to it. And here's where I remind you about progyny.com/talktohr, where you can find resources that can help you bring this benefit to your employer and try to help them add this benefit for you. Now, after her daughter was born, Danielle did a little reflecting, and she discovered a gap that needed filling for others in her position.
So I knew that my purpose was to be a mom. I know that immediately, even before. But once she was born, I found purpose in helping others through their infertility journeys, and how to navigate the road to completing their family. So I was able to, just talking to people and telling my story is really therapeutic for me, because I feel like the more that we tell our stories, the more awareness is around, and people don't feel like there's a stigma to infertility and they feel less alone.
Her nonprofit is called Making a Miracle.
So Making a Miracle is a nonprofit organization in the St. Louis area that caters to the infertility community and their mental health through support, advocacy, awareness, and so much more. Is an organization that gives resources, emotional support, and we're working on the financial support now. But it's just an organization that is like no other in the area that actually brings this community together, and makes you feel like that there's somebody there, So I founded that last year. We've actually hit a year now, which is pretty awesome. Thank you. It has been very exhausting, but very exciting at the same time, because I love being there for other people and being able to guide them no matter what part of journey they're in.
Danielle offers support, advocacy, and awareness through Making a Miracle. And, well, what better time to talk about awareness than National Infertility Awareness Week? Danielle has some exciting plans to share.
Really excited about National Infertility Awareness Week. We're doing it bigger and better this year. We're starting it off with a trivia night. So we're doing an infertility awareness trivia night. Then we are going to jump into, there is this amazing artist. Her name is the Glitter Enthusiast. And she is doing a kind of like a paint and sip hybrid in-person virtual art therapy class for us. And she uses her sterile IVF needles to create beautiful works of art. It's really cool. So we're going to have that. And then our resource fair, which is totally going to be, I am just super amazed at how many resources we're going to have. We're going to have clinics. We're going to have warriors who use their businesses to fund their fertility treatments. We have somebody that's going to be there with homemade dog treats. We have somebody that's going to be there selling cakes because that's what she does in order to fund her treatment. We have a nutritionist. We have, it is just incredible the amount of tables we're going to have out there. Someone's going to be out doing B12 and vitamin D shots. Like it is really cool. And it's all things that I just did not realize were available to me in the St. Louis area. And I want to be able to give that to somebody else, that is really struggling, and they'll be able to get that all in one spot. So I'm really excited about that.
So if you're in the St. Louis area, you need to search for Making a Miracle and get yourself to that resource fair. I want to thank Danielle for joining us today and sharing her story. I also want to thank you for listening. If you want to connect with us, you can do so on Instagram at This Is Infertility Podcast. If you want to follow Progyny, you can do so at Progyny Inc. Of course, if you're listening on a podcast app, please leave a rating and review. This Is Infertility is brought to you by Progyny. Please remember this podcast is not intended to substitute for the personalized expert advice of your physician. I'm Emma Gallagher, and this is Infertility.